Hi, I'm Daniel with RW Supply & Design, and I'm our technical director. Today we're going to be talking about recoat systems and when they're used, why they're used when you're coating a hardwood floor. I'm talking with RJ from Pallmann. He's their technical director, and he's been a contractor for a lot of years. So welcome, RJ.
Thanks for having me, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just want to talk about recoat systems. I think there's a little bit of confusion for some contractors about how they work, when you use them, what their design is, and perhaps a lot of guys think it's just an extra product you sell to throw down in a coat or in a refinishing of a wood floor.
Yeah.
And so I guess just to start out with, like, what instances would you recommend somebody use your recoat system, and what purpose does that serve in recoating a floor?
So really two things. There are some floors that are just truly unabradable. The classic screen and coat system, in that they either have a very hard aluminum oxide finish on them that physically you can't get a scratch in, so you need a chemical adhesion to that. An unlevel surface like a reclaimed floor that is very beveled, or very textured, saw marks, stuff like that. Factory beveled edges where you would either have to crawl and get a mechanical hand scratch in there, and then also situations where you just physically can't have any dust in a scenario at all. It is a truly dustless system. And then we've used it a few times to speed up a process in commercial environments, putting it over our magic oil. So using our magic oil, this is a bonding agent to magic oil to switch to a film finish. Basically makes the process a little faster than staining and coating. Okay, all right. And your recoat system is called what? It's called Pall-X Bond, and the X Bond means it's compatible with anything. It's X power, X, all the finishes are X, so it's compatible with that line. Pall-X power. Pall-X power, okay. Oh, excuse me, Pall-X Bond. Pall-X Bond, yep. Power is your finish. Power is the finish. Bond is the recoat agent. Perfect. So, seems like most finish companies out there have a recoat system, and they're all, in general, they all have kind of the same steps, which is test the floor, clean the floor, apply the adhesion promoter, and then finish the floor. So is that kind of the same with yours? It's very similar. The cleaning protocol for any system is going to be extremely important because you're not mechanically removing any contaminant that could be there. That could be a bond breaker, pine sol, pledge, Murphy's oil soap, anything like that. That has to be removed. In some cases, you could remove that with a screen and coat, but chemically removing it. So the cleaning is very important. And then, yes, there is the bonding agent. Ours comes in a kit, and there's a full testing protocol with extra mixing cups and extra rollers and everything to do the testing protocol. Okay. And that is also very important to get as close to a true guarantee as you can. Just talk to me like I'm a contractor. I'm headed out to a job. I walk in on a job. What should I be looking for on that floor in order to think about how to use your recoat system, or whether I even can use your recoat system? Okay, so that's a really good question, because there are floors that are physically uncoatable. If they have too heavy of a traffic pattern, if there's just too much finish worn off in certain places, where you have a living room, dining room that isn't very much used, and you have a kitchen that is extremely heavily used, may not be applicable to do that. Any recoat system's not going to fix dents and scratches and that type of stuff. Typically that's okay. The floor is going to re-dent and re-scratch with time. But really, if it's just excessive wear in a certain area, is really the main thing that I want a contractor to look for. The testing protocol will cover any other qualms that you would really be looking for. Okay. What red flags should I be thinking about in terms of contaminants on that floor, or things that might interfere with the success of Pall-X Bond? So if you can get an honest conversation, an honest answer from the homeowner and what they've used to clean the floor over the years, and if there has been any intermediate shine products put on the floor, those are, any of the polishes are going to be typically harder to remove than if they had cleaned the floor with Murphy's oil soap, which is a bond breaker. That can be removed and coated over, but some of the polishes can become very challenging to get off everywhere, and typically they're not
that can cause an adhesion problem long term.
Okay.
So that a very detailed conversation with the homeowner is important as well, just to see what they've used, and that would be the red flag is, oh yeah, I've put such and such polish on this floor 5 times. Okay, let's, we're gonna be a little more careful here.
Gotcha. Okay. So, classically I would think if I hear the word wax, polish, oil, soap, orange glow, like, are those the main things that you're going to be thinking of?
Those are the main ones, and wax and polish is really the 2 trickiest ones. This system, the X Bond system, we can handle the rest of them.
Okay.
But the wax and the polish can be extremely tricky.
Okay. What's the testing protocol look like?
So testing protocol, X Bond comes in a full kit with the cleaning agent, Clean Strong, and then all the rollers you're going to need to do the job, mixing cups to do the job. And it comes with 2 small, I want to say it's 1.5 inch wide roller, but it's a little roller about that big, and a little mixing cup. And you would take the Clean Strong, find a somewhat inconspicuous area, but we don't want it to be in a closet where nobody's ever walked or cleaned. We'd like it to be underneath a toe kick in a kitchen or something like that. You mix up the Clean Strong, you clean that with water, let that sit for 2 or 3 minutes, clean it with Clean Strong, wipe that up with water, make sure that's completely dry. Mix up a little tiny bit of the X Bond. It is a 2-component system. Mix that together, roll it down, let that sit for about 10 minutes till it's touch dry. At that point, put finish on top of it. That finish has to sit a minimum of 24 hours.
Okay.
So what I've had contractors do is just explain to the homeowner and just take their iPhone or their phone and just shoot a video pulling a coin across that tomorrow or the following day. And if that indents and it doesn't pull off the floor, at that point, we pass the testing protocol.
Gotcha. If it indents, it doesn't.
If it doesn't roll off the floor just with the edge of a coin.
Peel the finish.
Yep. If it doesn't peel the finish, if it indents, then we're going to be you're never going to say 100% guaranteed, but we're going to be very comfortable we're going to stick to that floor.
Okay. Gotcha. So that's the testing. Next stage would be cleaning. How do we clean?
So the cleaning is the most important part in the system. In any of the systems you're going to talk about, cleaning for a dustless recoat system is incredibly important. So our kit comes with our product called Clean Strong. It comes in a concentrate. You're going to dilute that down. Most residential houses are going to be about 10 parts water to 1 part Clean Strong. And then with either a red or a white pad, depending on the level of contamination on the floor that you can kind of identify, you're going to make a slurry on the floor. I'm from Colorado. It's more liquid than I'm comfortable with putting on a hardwood floor.
Because it's going to dry faster.
And you just need the slurry because all bond breakers take some time to work. Whether you're cleaning a stove, if you just wipe it real quick, it only does so much. But if you kind of get a slurry on there, it helps cut the grease on your pan or whatever. Similar aspect of the floor. So you'll buff it around with the red pad. Typically after 3 to 5 minutes, you're going to buff through that again, just kind of as you're going in sections, but you keep it wet the whole time. If you have a scrubber, that's ideal, or a good wet vac is ideal to pick up that slurry. Then you're going to follow behind and neutralize that with water on terry cloth towels.
Okay, so if I've got a buffer, put a red pad on it, what are you using to actually put the Clean Strong water mixture down with? Like practically?
So typically I would just use from Home Depot, they have a really good HDX spray bottle. That's what I put it in. Then I can just hold it in my hand as I'm buffing and just keep spraying the floor continuously with the mixture. You're going to have to stop and, depending on the size of the floor, remix it. The Clean Strong, at a 10-to-1 ratio, you could do easily 5,000 square feet with the liter of product that's in there. So I typically put it into a spray bottle so I can carry it and buff at the same time and just keep buffing and buffing and buffing.
And that's the red pad. So you're going to buff the floor good with that slurry, come back, even hit it again with that red pad. And then you want to get that up off the floor. You mentioned either a floor scrubber or a wet dry vacuum. Could you have a guy go with clean terry rags and wipe it up with terry rags?
So that's how we did it forever. That's the most labor intensive, but we would take a 5-gallon bucket, fill it about halfway full, saturated terry cloth rag, pick up that slurry. As soon as that water starts to go gray, clean water, clean towel, clean floor. That's the rule of thumb. Clean water, clean towel, clean floor. Keep it clean because we are dealing with gravity. All of that sediment's going to resettle on the floor unless you physically pick it up and remove it. So yes, with terry cloth rags, it can be done. It's not the most fun way to do it, Daniel. A scrubber is more fun. I will guarantee you that. But it certainly can be done that way. I've done several of them myself where you you have 2 guys following behind you, just mopping that up and getting water and towels.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And then edges of the floor, like hand with a pad to
Yep.
scrub that?
Hand with a pad. Most of the time, the cleaning agents are not spread all the way to the wall, so it's a lot easier than the body of the floor. Just practically speaking, homeowners typically don't really do them. So yeah, just quick by hand as you're going. The buffer guy can stop and do them, or same process, but by hand with the center circle out of the red pad works perfect.
Okay. If a guy's lucky enough to have a floor scrubber or have invested in one, do you even have to use the buffer? Can you just use the floor scrubber?
You can for a lightly soiled floor, but any of the buffers are not that, the contact of the floor is not that strong.
Yeah.
So we really encourage using the buffer because it's just a lot more force.
Gotcha.
So similar to a spray car wash and a brush car wash, similar idea. So the buffer is going to be a lot more aggressive, and then the scrubber can come behind that and do kind of the next 2 steps by itself with
Gotcha.
both picking up the slurry and neutralizing it with water at the same time.
Gotcha. So
But
then,
lightly soiled floor, yes, but normally a buffer.
so then if you are using the buffer and you do have a floor scrubber, you got 2 steps with the floor scrubber, which is use like a clean, strong water mixture to pick up the slurry, and then use water or cleaner to neutralize, or is it only one step?
Just 1 step with the scrubber. Just be water in the scrubber.
Okay,
No clean strong. Yep, that would just be water at that point. Clean
And that,
strong would be on the
that
buffer.
picks up the clean, strong slurry.
That picks up the slurry and it helps mix it with water to keep it, to keep it re-emulsified and get it back up into the scrubber.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then I typically run behind that with just a dry terry rag on a push broom or something, just to pick up any residual residue that's left from the scrubber.
Okay, awesome. So now we got through the clean step. We're ready to apply the adhesion promoter, which is the actual X Bond. How should I do that?
Yep. So X Bond it's a 2-component system. There's 2 different mixing jugs in the 2 mixing containers in the kit if you're going to mix a whole liter or if you're going to mix partials. On a pre-finished, tight-grained, pre-finished aluminum oxide floor, this product's going to spread about 700 square feet per liter. Very, very thin. The thinner, the better. On a floor, say like I said, finished with magic oil, you're going to get about 500 square feet out of a liter because you just have more pores for it to physically saturate into. At that point, you shake both of the components, gently shake both of the components. It mixes out a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 parts of component A to 1 part of component B. Stir those together gently as you're mixing. You're going to get kind of like a heavy cream consistency. It's thicker than water. It shouldn't be as thick as mayonnaise. It should be in between those 2. The kit comes with 2 of the small rollers, so you can roll all the edges and door jambs, and it comes with a 10-inch roller for doing the body of the floor. Very, very short napped, and with applying it, less is better. All you're trying to do is just change the sheen of the floor a little bit, and there's no level or flow or anything involved, so you can roll through it as many times as you want to, and you roll it and stretch it out onto floor that you didn't have X Bond on, and just keep stretching it and stretching it as thin as you possibly can.
Yeah, I learned that the hard way. I mixed it up. I started doing 1 bedroom, and then I ran out of it in the next bedroom and realized I went through the whole Pall-X Bond in like 250 square feet.
Yeah. For most guys, it's hard to explain how thin you put it down.
Yeah.
It doesn't register with us. I've spent the last 9 years of my life telling guys, more product on the floor, because finishes we're always trying to get more coverage.
Yeah.
This, you're spreading it as paper thin as possible. Typically, that's not going to create much of an issue if you coat thick enough, but in that room where you used a little bit extra, you probably had a little bit more texture in that X Bond. Yeah. And that could transfer through to the finish if you don't get enough finish on there. That would be the main problem.
Yeah. I thought it had a little bit of an alligator skin texture, and I thought, I'm going to have to coat this floor multiple times. Now, thankfully, I put a thick coat of finish on. You could not tell. It looked great. It looked fantastic. But I was surprised how thin it is. So when you say get up to, 600, 700, 800 square feet for just that one kit.
For 1 liter.
Yeah, that's stretching pretty thin.
It's very thin. It's one of the reasons we sell a very sturdy extension pole from Pallmann, because you physically have your hand on top of it and you're putting pressure on that roller and you're really rolling and stretching it. Everything else in the line, your hand is underneath the pole and you're trying to leave as little pressure on the floor as possible to put down finish. This you're really leaning on the pole and really stretching it. It is somewhat labor intensive at that point, because one of the jokes we use when I'm talking to a contractor is, Yeah, if you don't have a couple beads of sweat, you're not rolling this thin enough. That's just, that's kind of one of the jokes we use to say this is how thin you need to get it. You need to break a little sweat putting it down.
Gotcha. So now we got it rolled out on the floor. What's the dry time look like?
90 minutes. It needs to sit 90 minutes. There is a back end window. The finish has to go on it before 4 hours has elapsed.
Okay, so you've got between your hour and a half from when you started and 4 hours from when you started that you got to be putting finish on.
Yep. Okay. So if you're on a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot job, there's a very good chance I would break that into 2 sections to make sure that I could get it all done and dry. But that section I started isn't out there around that 3.5, 4 hour mark, because this is sort of like two-sided tape, but it will become very hard on its own. The finish is designed to emulsify into this, and that's how it sticks. Okay. So there is a back end window. So most situations, it's not a concern. You could just don't. I always tell contractor, don't do the cleaning process, put the X Bond down, come back the next morning. Yeah, that's not going to work. Clean it, come back the next morning, put the X Bond down if that's the time frame. But just make sure you get it on before the 4 hours has elapsed.
Okay. And is there a difference in how you apply the finish over it, or?
So we would prefer in this case that you roll the finish down. T-bar guys can do it. Our experience has been that a T-bar application is typically slightly thinner in application. You get a little bit more square footage out of your finish. And with the little bit of texture that we're going to leave on this floor, we need to give the finish the chance to have the fill capacity. So we really need the coverage rate to be that 450 to 500 number to make sure that there's no visible transfer from the X Bond to that you can't visually see it. So if a guy can T-bar at 450 to 500, can absolutely do it, but it's easier to roll it at that coverage rate.
Okay. And can you put all your film forming finishes?
Can put any of the film form. It's compatible with all the film forming finishes. Typically in a recoat system, I'm hoping guys are charging enough, and so I would skew them to the higher grade finishes in the line, either power or gold. 96 and pure are completely compatible with it, but at that point, you've gone through a lot of work, and this is pretty expensive, and that separation, I would prefer they went with power or gold. Just at this point, put the best product forward.
Okay, gotcha. So I think a lot of guys are thinking, especially after hearing that, man, that's a lot of steps, that's a lot of product. A screen costs me a few bucks. Just throw that under my buffer and go. Like, what would you tell a contractor about just buying a couple dollar screen versus using a recoat system?
So this system for me and for Pallmann is really for any non-abradable floor. Yeah. So a floor that a screen is not physically going to work. You have a reclaimed floor with saw marks in it. You have V bevels in it. Yep. I got a call from one contractor that was in a situation. He was recoating a radio station that had about $2 million worth of computers down one of the hallway walls, open to the hallway. Physically couldn't have any dust present at all. So it is completely dustless. So this would not be my everyday scenario. I'm not going to go into a regular sand and finish floor and do this system. This is for instances where you're either at risk or you need no dust.
Gotcha. And so I assume with that, this sounds like a great system to use on pre-finished floors, which oftentimes have texture, almost always have a beveled edge, and almost always are a little bit unlevel. Yep. Such that if you buff it, you might take a
little color off. Yep. And that. Yep. Gotcha. And a lot of in the pre-finished world, a lot of those products have extremely hard finishes that are just, you can't get a mechanical scratch on them. And there is a handful of finishes out there that have Teflon in them, and that's where the testing protocol comes in, because nothing will stick to Teflon at all. X Bond won't say there's not a product in the world that will stick to it. We've been approached by the manufacturer of Teflon saying, if it sticks, we will buy it from you. But there is a few finishes that do have a minor amount of Teflon in them, and you can't, even this system won't work.
Gotcha.
So that's where the testing protocol is very important here again.
Gotcha. You talked earlier about like heavy wear patterns, scratches and stuff like that. So what repairs should a contractor do to the floor before they launch off into the recoating system?
So individual scratches that have affected the coloring of the floor, those can be repaired individually. That's typically going to require some sanding or some artistic painting, cabinet style repair for a physical scratch that has done that. Again, if it's a very heavy, dirty wear area and the clean strong process doesn't bring that back to looking the normal color, that's not a recoatable floor at that point. That floor would have to be resanded at that point. So really, refrigerator wheels in front of or slight water damage in front of if they wanted that flattened, you could flatten that first, build that back up with color and finish, and then do the whole system. But really, the repairs that I've seen are applicable are physically recoloring scratches.
Gotcha.
Visible scratches. The indentations and everything, we're going to fill some of those in, but they're going to be visible.
Yep.
They're also going to be visible 2 months after a contractor sands the floor.
Yep.
And so that's not really the issue. So that's kind of the repairs that I would say is just, more of a classic hardwood repair, but a specific coloring repair.
So once you get into like large areas that have lost their color or whatever, you would say, hey, that's not something you could touch up and use X Bond. We'd prefer at that point you're just saying it.
Yeah, at that point, if it, like I say, and I mean, there are some cases where people are in rentals, it's a rental property or something. I just need finish on here that the customer can clean or the next renter can clean. Let's get it coated. Sure, you could do that, but you can't promise that the aesthetic is not going to be the same. We can't affect the color, the recoloring of the floor or anything at that point. So.
Okay. So last question, my favorite question. If contractors are going to mess your system up, and all of us contractors find creative ways to mess things up.
Oh, yeah.
What are the easiest pitfalls that somebody can avoid with X Bond?
Not being mentally prepared for the cleaning process is probably the biggest hurdle for guys to get over, because it's a process. I can't make excuses. You need to get the floor clean. That is what all this adhesion is going to be based on. And if they're undercharging for that service, they're going to start to rush, because it does take time to clean the floor, and they're going to start to rush, and they're going to mix a spot, and everything would work. But now we're stuck to Murphy's oil soap, and Murphy's oil soap isn't stuck that good to the floor. That's the main issue that we run into, is making sure guys are mentally prepared for the amount of work that's going to be done here. Then secondly is mixing more product than you can get spread down on the floor in an hour, because it does have a pot life as well once it's mixed together, and it does take time to roll it out. It's not as fast as finish. So if we're working in a chopped up situation, mix up smaller amounts, because guys have gone to where it will start to harden in the bottle or in the mixing cup itself, and then you can't physically get it on the floor. Other than that, if you go through the steps, that's really, I mean, if it passed the testing protocol, it's pretty much going to work every time. But the main pitfall that I think guys run into is they're under aware of the amount of cleaning that needs to be done for a recoat system to work properly.
Gotcha. Okay. Do you have any advice for how contractors should address recoating a floor with a homeowner, given the fact that there's really no recoat system out there that's 100% guaranteed?
Yep.
So when a homeowner is paying for a service to get their floor recoated, you can't guarantee that. Do you just have any practical advice for how to have that conversation with the homeowner and how to maybe even charge for it or hedge that bet?
Yeah, I mean, this is a system that is, I would say it's, if you play a lot of Monopoly, this is a get out of jail free card. This is a situation where there's not another way to extend the life of this floor other than the system. So therefore, it has a tremendous amount of value in that way. So it's going to be expensive to do. And then having the upfront conversation with the with the homeowner, that it in no situation is, we can't guarantee this 100%. I do have a few contractors that will do this, and then they'll actually add on, if this doesn't completely live up to your expectations, we can schedule a resand following this at a slightly discounted price. That is something that some guys use and don't use. But really, I think the main thing in the hardwood business is opening up early conversations with the homeowners, setting expectations that this heavy dent right here may still be visible, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner. That's just the reality of the situation, because we're not flattening the floor. We're going to do our best to clean this floor as well as we can. We can't 100% guarantee adhesion. We can be very comfortable going through the testing protocol and being comfortable there, but making sure their expectations aren't, this is going to be a brand new floor and when we're done. This is going to be an extension of the floor they have.
Gotcha.
And so we are now providing a new service life to the floor. And just having that conversation up front is important. And then yeah, if you follow the testing protocol and everything, this system is very, very reliable at that point. So,
All right. Well, great. Well, RJ, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for answering all my questions and helping me understand recoating a little bit better.
awesome.
So
Thanks, Daniel.